Hola, how are you?
I'm
Welcome
doing.
to the delicious recap. Oh shit, I messed it up.
No, no, you're doing fine so far.
Okay, y'all, this is my first time starting an episode. So, welcome to the delicious recap Family Matters podcast. How are you? Who are you? We're on this phone call together.
I am Jon Francois. I am doing good. It is going to be interesting being in the passenger seat after being so used to being in the driver's seat. And I don't know if I should be the character this week because you usually are. Are you still going to be the character?
You know, I am going to be a little bit of a character, but I would love to know who you would be.
Oh, God. That is a very good question. I think I would be all three Darnells at once. I think that the charisma, the enthusiasm, the singing glee of those guys, like I would want them to be my friends. So I'm going to inhabit Carl's three high school singing friends who all for some reason have the same name.
Oh, you're an amalgamation of three people. You've just come
Yeah,
together and merged.
you got it, sir. Yeah, I am the amalgamation of all the Darnells, and I think they all also worked at Amalgamated Foods, so it all ties together.
It does. See, little tie in there. I didn't even think about it. Myself, I'm gonna be AJ today, but if there was a character I would be, the character we never see, but I would be Andre of Cooking with Andre.
Andre of Cooking with Andre. You have to jog my memory. What are you talking about?
Carl is watching TV on his exercise bike, and it is one of the commercials that comes on.
That is a deep cut. I totally forgot about that moment. Yeah. Oh my God. The moment when he he was like jumping on his bike aggressively to get to the cupcake. And I think clearly did not need to because there was like a good second when he was the only one in the living room that could have and he could have just, got off the bike and gotten the cupcake easily. But I digress.
There's a lot to it. I feel like he could have got those cupcakes very easily, but we'll get to it. Before we get started, Rochester, New York is going crazy right now. We have to boil our water in my area. That is a very interesting thing because they found somebody in our reservoir and that person was not living.
Wow. So what? So what's the background on this? Like, did this person get murdered and thrown in the reservoir?
We don't know. The body was found earlier today at noon, and the news has been very, very sparse on it of what has actually happened. And they still have the reservoir all blocked off and everything. And the crazy thing about it, I go up there and walk at that reservoir almost once a week.
Okay. So now you're going to look at it in a different light. Like, oh, this is responsible for me having to boil water every time I want to drink it.
Yeah, I am not going back there. At this point, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to go walking up there anymore. This is a sign. Do not go up where they found a person floating in the reservoir.
Well, I mean, I've definitely had boil water notices before. It's funny, like when they have happened in my small towns in Vermont that I've lived in, it usually only happens for like a second. And because it happens for so quick a second, I'm not really able to have the chance to boil the water. So to have it like long enough where it's like news coverage and you probably had to drink your boiled warm water. Oh, God bless. Wait. So you boil the water and then you can refrigerate it and then drink it if you want cold water, right? That's how it works.
Yeah. So you just boil it. Now, the news says to boil it for 1 minute. I boil it for 15 minutes if I am going to boil water because I do that sometimes just naturally ever since I started drinking tap water. But I went and bought bottled water for tonight. I was just like, let me just go buy a couple of gallons of water and I'm good to go. That way I don't even have to think about it. And then as far as like showering and stuff in the morning, that's going to be an interesting experience.
Is it possible to just go to another town and do that? Like that's nearby that doesn't have the boil water notice?
Possibly, but I don't know anybody who lives in any other towns that are like close enough to be convenient for work to just go over there and be like, hey, can I shower at your place? So that's the only thing because everybody that I know, we're all in the radius of where we're under this boil water notice.
Yeah, because if I was in your position, I'd be like, oh, let me just, go find a random YMCA public shower in like Albany or something and then wash my jollies off. And then hopefully by the time I make the 3-hour trip back, because I'm realizing that Albany and Rochester are not close to each other, hopefully by the time I get back is when the boil water notice will be lifted.
Fingers crossed that would be something I would do. But for me, it's slightly more terrifying to use a public shower than it would be to shower in water where they found somebody. I feel like I'm like surviving. Like I'm like in a Bear Grylls situation where I'm in the middle of the forest and I have to
Yeah.
boil this water to survive. And that's how it kind of feels. And I don't know if I like it. I thought it would be enjoyable to be a survivalist. I'm not a fan of this right now. It's a rough situation, but something that did help. I actually started rewatching this episode when I got home just to take my mind off boiled water notice. So that's actually helped change my mood because I'm excited to talk about this one.
So what are your thoughts? What did you think about it? Because I think you had mentioned in a previous episode that this one touched you in a significant way.
Hands down, this is my favorite episode of the season so far. This is my favorite episode I've watched. I've only watched up to episode 17 and episode 15. This was my favorite of all episodes. Like I could relate to it so much because a lot of it is like recent in my life.
Really? Oh my God, I'm curious to find out more. Is it okay if I give like just the basic facts, or do you already have that?
Yes, please give the basic facts because I deleted my page that had the good stuff on it. It's been a weird day.
Oh my God, you accidentally delete TikTok footage at 90s Con. You're deleting stuff from this episode.
I don't know what like the earth has for me. It's like delete stuff. And I'm like, crap.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, just very briefly, we're talking about season 1, episode 15, The Big Reunion. Original air date January 19th, 1990. Alan Eisenstock and Larry Mintz wrote the episode. The wonderful Rich Correll directed it. And I have guest stars and a Hulu synopsis if you want.
Yes, please.
Sit down. Hang on. In the time that it takes for me to read the guest stars, you will have already completed your boiled water shower. So we have Jaleel White as Steve Urkel. And, oh my God, Judy Winslow Matters on Instagram told us in our DMs at Family Matters Rewatch Pod that they filmed episode 15 before they filmed episode 12. Because, like, I was noticing, like, oh, Urkel literally only appears in the cold open in this episode, and then he's gone. So this is basically a repetition thing from the pre-episode 12 days where Urkel was just randomly popping up in these like syndicated cold opens.
Right. Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we have Jaleel, we have Ken Page as Darnell Watkins. We have to try to get him on because I think he's the only Darnell that's still alive.
Okay.
Ron Taylor as Darnell Coleman, Ludi C. Washington as Darnell Clark, Ellen Albertini Dow as Miss Gilbert, Louis Mastillo as Russell, Louise Heath as Janet Watkins, Sue Buggen as Irene. And then very simply, Hulu synopsis, Carl is too embarrassed to attend his high school reunion because of the weight he's gained. Now, how did this episode personally touch you?
Okay, so my high school reunion, oh my God, I graduated in 2007 and it's 2024. Is that 17 years?
That might be, yeah.
I think 17 years. So my 15th year high school reunion, I did not want to go to it. I didn't want to go to it because I was not comfortable with how I looked. And I hadn't put on weight. I actually lost a lot of weight. And I thought I just didn't look good. And I was afraid to go.
And so you didn't actually go?
No, I didn't actually go. I didn't go to the reunion at all. The reunion was at my high school. It was planned, set up. There was a massive group chat, Facebook and all that, people putting stuff together. I don't think I responded or posted anything in the messages, but I kept getting tagged in them. And then the reunion happened and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to that. And I went out to a bar instead.
So, okay. So it sounds like you didn't regret your decision. You felt good about avoiding that, or maybe you felt regret. How did you feel afterwards?
I didn't feel regret. I think I realized that I was not close with anybody in my high school class. I really wasn't. I didn't really build a lot of connections with people aside from like 2 or 3 who also didn't show up at the reunion, but funny enough, ended up at the same bar I was at.
Oh my God. And what was that conversation like when you guys ran into each other and noticed like, oh, hey, we're not at the high school reunion?
One of my friends, her name was Kita. She's sitting at the bar when I walk in and she's like, hey sis. I was like, oh shit, you didn't go either? And we just walked over, hugged, and just sat there and started drinking. And then another one of our friends walked in, Quentin, and then we look at him, he looks at us, and we just all start laughing because it's like, you didn't go. And then the last person to walk in was our friend Melvin. He walks in, and he's like, so y'all just don't show up for anything. And he didn't go. So we just hung out at the bar. And then slowly through the night, other people from the class actually start coming to the same bar. So it kind of turned into a high school reunion in a way, anyways. But
I
I
was
think it
gonna
was all the cool people.
clearly made your own reunion that wasn't like formally put on by the school. That's awesome.
It was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice moment. And I was like, ooh, I like this. But there was a moment where we all kind of got a little sad where we're like, damn, it's been 15 years since we graduated.
Oh, like just like the passage of time and you're getting older and what do you do with your life? Who are you? Yep, yep. Sort of like an early midlife crisis. Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of like that thing. The funny thing, though, none of us have kids and none of us were married. So it wasn't like, hey, you haven't done these milestones yet. It was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life right now. And they were in the same boat.
How old were you guys at the time?
Oh, that was 33 for me. 30. Am I 36? I am 35. So that was 33 for me because it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And, I think, yeah, especially when you hit your 30s, there is that sort of maybe you feel that expectation that like, oh, God, I should be settled. I should be figured out. Like I already went through my 20s where I was discovering things. At 30s, I should have it figured out. But nah, there's people in their freaking 60s that don't have life figured out.
Yes, don't figure it out. Life is not meant to be figured out. It's just meant to experience.
Absolutely. This episode actually reminded me of the stigma surrounding high school reunions that also led me to refuse to go to mine. To my knowledge, I know there was like a 10th anniversary high school reunion. And I didn't go for a different reason. I mean, I never cared about like how I looked and blah, blah, blah. I just think that it was sort of this mentality of like, oh, God, that was in the past. And I was a different person. I thought differently. I talked differently. I dressed differently. And I just felt that by going back and reuniting with these people that I saw every day when I was this completely different person, it would just be odd. It would be odd. And I just decided to just be a very forward moving person and just avoid that. Now, granted, I mean, there are still friends here and there that I keep in touch with from high school on Facebook. Sometimes I may hang out with them in person if I'm back in my home state of Connecticut. But as a whole formal school thing, no. I just think that the past is a past. And also, going off of what you said, there is that sort of pressure that you feel like, oh, God, I got to come back and tell like the most amazing life story. Here are all the amazing things that I've done since high school. Can you believe it? I want to make you jealous. And yeah, I don't like all that stigma. So for all those reasons, I'm just like, meh, God. And I also like in regards to this episode, the whole losing weight thing, I feel like Carl was wrongfully led to believe that like, all right, you want to go to your high school reunion, lose some weight. That's the way to do it. And it was like, no, like, you could choose to go and be okay with how you look because truly Carl looks fine. I mean, especially when you look at the three Darnells, like Carl looked fine. So I think it was more about, let's get into why Carl doesn't want to go to the reunion. All right, if it's losing weight, like you feel like you're insecure about it, then instead of feeding into that unhealthy obsession, I don't know, maybe find some more self-esteem, find some more self-confidence, or maybe just be okay with not wanting to go. I don't know. I mean, like, what were your thoughts in terms of like this whole idea of like, oh, Carl's got to lose weight to go to this reunion?
I could see why Carl felt losing weight was going to be important for the reunion, but I didn't like the fact that his only thing was, I just have to lose weight for this reunion, when it's more like, hey, go and show these people the most amazing person you are. Like, you're adults, we're all going through these life changes, we're growing. You have a family, you have a house, you have a great job. There's a lot of things that if you just want to go and say, oh, this is what I do. I mean, I would love to say I'm the first person to land on Saturn, but that's just not a reality for a high school reunion. And it sucks that you want to be able to build this huge persona for the people that you used to know, but it's also far more practical and relatable to just go and say, hey, I know what my life is. I'm pretty sure we have the same thing happening, just in different spectrums. And it could have been a beautiful moment for him.
And just the fact that his own family was just kind of egging him on this whole weight loss journey. It's like I just felt like it was just feeding into that stigma of what you have to look like and appear like and sound like when you go to your high school reunion. Pretend like you're the greatest person ever since high school, when the reality is, no, we're all still struggling.
Right. You don't hear about me on the news. So, of course, we know I am just living a regular life. We can just enjoy ourselves, enjoy each other, and just make it great. But what I love in this episode, while the family was like, yeah, Carl, lose weight, go to the reunion, we had a really amazing side story with Eddie. Like, the two stories happening together, I feel like was put together really artistically throughout this episode.
Remind me, what side story happened with Eddie?
So Eddie getting promoted at his job.
Oh yeah, the produce thing. Oh my God. Okay. Let's go in order so I can remember everything, because we've tried to record this episode a million times, and it's been, I think, many weeks since I've watched this episode. So the cold open.
So the cold open for me, just so I can just set it up for everybody. Sure. In the cold open, we got Judy, we got Judy, Laura, Eddie, and Steve. I do not know why I cannot say Laura today. Jesus Christ. They are all going to be in the scene together, interacting. It's like a Saturday morning-ish feel because it's very casual. Steve and Eddie are going to go play basketball. Laura and Judy are sitting at the table eating what I think is oatmeal in these massive bowls.
I didn't notice the massive bowl part, but I did get the idea that, oh yeah, this is like standard prop oatmeal. And Jamie Foxworth herself on Instagram had mentioned that she was eating that prop food like crazy. And that oatmeal was what she was eating very positively and satisfyingly. Oh, okay. I hope you experienced better food when you grew up.
I hope so too. I feel like she had like her Three Bears moment and it was just right. Maybe it was really delicious for her, but it did not look good. We get our Steve moment of, Steve and his hijinks. So Steve, of course, comes in. He's got a basketball in his hand. He and Eddie are supposed to be going to play basketball, but Eddie decides to leave without him. And Steve starts playing with his ball in front of Laura's gigantic bowl of oatmeal. Spins the ball, it drops into the oatmeal. And the first thing that I noticed about the bowl was I was like, that is a massive bowl for an entire basketball to fall inside of it. And there was still room around the rim of this bowl. Like, that was massive.
This is how you get your protein, Andrew. You have basketball-sized oatmeal bowls.
I think it'll be delicious. I don't know if the grit from the ground for the basketball maybe makes it a little more fibrous. So It'll keep you regular. But the thing I noticed about the scene, and I want to know if you noticed it, when the basketball drops into the oatmeal, it's done in two separate shots that we see the basketball. So when it first drops in the oatmeal, there's oatmeal splattered on the side of the basketball. After they cut away and then you go back to the basketball and Laura, it's completely clean except at the bottom.
I didn't notice that. Oh my God. I swear, man, this family sitcom, they think that because it's so basic, it's so Friday night TGIF comfort food that we won't notice these things. Okay, we picked up on that. Like, when you're putting a basketball in oatmeal, it's an all messy thing. Like, you got to keep some continuity there.
Yeah, we got to keep the continuity. I want to know what you thought about this scene.
I noticed that the kitchen looks gray as hell. It just, I was looking at it and I was like, what kind of painting job is this? Maybe was this color already in the previous episodes? Because it just stuck out to me.
It stuck out a lot because there's a lot of bland stuff in the scene. Even everybody in the scene is not wearing the bright, fuzzy colors we really know them for.
Right. Oh my God. And Steve's outfit, I'm just drawn to the shorts and the suspenders and the yellow tank top. And he had a couple of ripped up shirts underneath. And the whole outfit seemed like it was hiked up past his belly. And I was already thinking oh, Jaleel must be uncomfortable. And he's going to have to be uncomfortable for the majority of the series, because this is kind of in line with why he eventually gave up the suspenders. He, I think, admitted in an interview, I think it was on the short-lived Keenan Ivory Wayans talk show, where the reason why in the last few episodes of the series where you don't see him wear suspenders anymore was that because it was hiking up to his balls. It was sucking his balls up into his skin. So I think with this thing, here. It's just kind of a precursor of like, oh yeah, Jaleel's going to have to, have some uncomfortable testicle situations.
He did. I saw that interview. He should have went and talked to a drag queen. They could have taught you how to tuck.
But unfortunately, drag queens didn't get the recognition they deserved in 1990.
They didn't, but they were still out there. They were underground. So Jaleel, I expected him to do a little method acting and be like, okay, in my later years, show me what I got to do with this. When Eddie kind of leaves and just tells Laura, which I love Laura for this, saying, hey, tell mom that I'm going to go play basketball. And she's kind of like, go tell her yourself. This whole like little interaction that Eddie and Laura have at the scene, it kind of reminds me of like a Saturday morning with my brother and what we would end up doing when he's going out to do something. He's like, oh, tell them where I'm going. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Tell them yourself.
And if they don't tell, and usually the sibling doesn't end up telling them because they just, they want to, get you in trouble with mom.
Either get you in trouble or I'm going back to my cartoons. I've got other things here. I did like that this cold open wasn't, I feel like, as clunky as the others that we've seen. I felt like it was pretty smooth compared to the others. Like everybody is kind of more relaxed with each other in the situation. And the physical comedy was a nice little touch for it. This scene one, we've got the starting with Judy and Laura. They're setting the dinner table. Eddie's coming in and he's talking with family and Harriet, and I think Carl is in the scene as well, but he walks in a little bit into it with Rachel.
I think so. Do you know who else is in this scene?
Oh, we have my mom back. Mother Winslow is back.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I put in my notes. I was like, oh my God, Estelle's back.
I'm happy to see her. I'm so happy to see her that she gets back in here. She's like, hey, I'm here, y'all. Didn't miss a beat. I feel like she came back energized too, because she hasn't been in a few episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. Either she just had like a health issue and she had plenty of bed rest and she's woke up all energized, or the writers and producers just had nothing for her to do. So she just sat around waiting, maybe practicing Mama Winslow isms in front of the mirror. Way to go, Carl. Way to go, Carl. And and she's ready to go now. She is ready to play. I
see her in mirrors doing finger guns saying, way to go, Carl. Just with mirrors surrounding her and just doing it like she's doing a quick draw.
Mm-hmm. Gonna shoot you with my pistol. Mm-hmm.
This scene here, I liked how we got to interact with everybody in the scene. We have everybody from the main cast. Is Richie in the scene? Except for baby Richie.
I have no notes for Richie, so maybe not.
Except for baby Richie, we have everybody in the main cast. And we get the start of our story here, where Carl is talking with the family about the family reunion. Not family reunion, high school reunion, Jesus Christ. Now that we have everybody talking together, Carl's making his decision if he's going to go to this reunion. And this is where we delve into more of our story, which I'm really liking. Before I go any further in the scene, were there any highlights that stuck out for you in the very beginning of it?
I was trying to figure out like what were those muffins that Harriet was serving like at the countertop. I was like, are those dried banana muffins? What are those?
They look like bran muffins. Like they look like they would make you go to the bathroom.
Which I guess is great if you're constipated, but I think I was just looking at those muffins for like delicious taste purposes. And I was like, damn, Harriet, you already had a dry ass pot roast. Please don't have dry banana muffins too.
The food in the beginning of this episode and some things that we see as food in this episode make me question this family and their taste.
It makes me question probably like the white prop people's taste, because they're the one providing it. And Jo Marie, like coming from the South and how good their cooking is, she was just kind of backstage like, little do they know. And I mean, being a first season sitcom, she probably didn't feel the power to speak up about it. So here we go. Here's, cold grandma looking oatmeal being smashed by a basketball. And here's very dry banana muffins that will make you want water a lot.
They're thirst muffins for sure. They were very dry. I feel like if you gave somebody one of those to eat, it's like torture. Like you just sit a glass of water far away from them, they're not going to survive. I did like one thing in this scene scene that becomes relatable as the family's just interacting and talking with each other. It's a different spectrum to see Carl uncomfortable because we really haven't seen him in an uncomfortable situation being vulnerable with the family. It's more been like he's either super funny and comedic or he's trying to be angry, but it turns out to be comedic.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, so we get the vulnerability with the weight, and it's something that touches him personally. But then you contrast it with all the fat jokes that have been made at his expense in the last, 13, 14 episodes. I like how we are offered the chance to sit back and think, oh, wait a minute, this is like, this could be a hurtful, deep issue for Carl, is his weight. And it's funny how, despite this episode, I think we still continue with the fat jokes later on.
We do. The fat jokes keep happening, but we get this moment of just vulnerability where now that you say it, I'm like, wow, for 14 episodes, have we just been desensitized to it to not think that there's like emotion behind it?
Yeah. And in the beginning, when we started doing this show, I was like, oh God, the fat jokes, they're fat shaming. It's coming. And here we are. We're at an episode where we're getting an impression that, Carl could be generally insecure about the weight. And that maybe not be something to laugh at.
Yeah. I feel bad at laughing at some of the jokes that I did laugh at watching this episode. And I think that kind of helped. And I want to know, maybe if we ever get to talk to Rich Carell again, was this intentional? Like that we had been desensitized to it and he found this as a way to bring it into the episode and tap into an emotion that the audience didn't know that they had?
Possibly. I mean, from what I remember from our Rich Carell interview, he just made it as simple as like, it's fat jokes. It's a family sitcom. It's part of the deal. Reginald took it like a good sport and just kept it rolling. So yeah, that would be an interesting follow-up conversation to have with Rich for sure.
Rachel, when she comes into the scene, she looks super cute. I love her.
What was she wearing?
She had on her workout outfit when she came in and she was singing something and she was so pumped and she had that same blue, like electric blue top with those black stretched shorts on. And I love that outfit. I think it's super cute. It's just quintessential like early 90s, late 80s workout attire. That really stuck out to me. I have it in bold writing.
And to follow that up, did you notice Laura's shirt? It gave me like Twister Game vibes.
It did look like Twister. It really did. I saw her shirt and I was uncomfortable by it because it was bold.
It was a lot. And this is going to be Laura's identity for quite some time until she gets into the teenagery stage where I guess she just kind of wants to fit in and maybe the colors are a tad toned down.
Yeah, Laura becomes the cool kid. So she kind of like mutes her colors. I like when she goes through her goth phase. So I like when she's in these darker colors. But I am going to miss all these bright, like very creative clothing patterns that she has.
Harriet, did you notice her long skirt? It had like a very private school teacher vibes.
I thought that too. The long skirt with the black heels and the sweater top. I was like, she looks like a Catholic school teacher and she's about to beat the shit out of somebody.
Yep. And with the sassy head nods and everything like that, it's going to be a different kind of slap than a nun slap. It's not going to be a ruler. It's going to be a good old African switch.
It's the slap to take you to Jesus. That's what she's gonna do.
Oh my God. Was there any particular lines that stood out to you? Because you were talking about the Eddie produce storyline, and there was actually a line in this scene that stood out to me from that.
What's the line that stuck out to you? Because the one that stuck out for me is just that he was like, he's got great news about somebody getting fired.
Oh, Eddie, I am happy at someone's misery. Yay! Laura playing that mean middle child thing again. She was sarcastically telling Eddie to, reach for the stars when he tells the news about like seeking that new opening at the grocery store, like the produce department. And I was like, man, Laura, you stop grocery shaming Eddie. Grocery work is fine for anybody who wants to do it.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot how passive aggressive she was being towards Eddie, who's excited about career growth.
This is something that we will notice more now than back then, but it's very easy to lean into that stigma of like, oh, if you're like working at a grocery store, if you're working at a fast food restaurant, you're lowly, you're doing peasantry work. And it's like, no, if it's something that is fulfilling to you at the present moment, go for it.
Yes, I feel like Eddie needs to be encouraged here. John, if you were there, what would you have said in place of Laura's line? I just need to know.
Reach for the cantaloupe, Eddie. And I would have said it genuinely. I would have said, because that's what you technically have to do in the produce department. Maybe the cantaloupe is like 7 feet high on the top aisle. Reach for it, Eddie. The cantaloupe is a literal thing that you reach for and also a metaphor for how high you can be promoted in the produce department. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I like it because it's play and it works.
Okay. What would you have said?
Thinking about this, I would be like, Eddie, a goal is a goal.
Yeah, it is. And that's factual. I like that because that is factual. A goal is a goal. Make it that.
That's the perfect way to say it. I like this, that there is this happening both in the scene, though. We get Carl super vulnerable and we see Eddie climbing a ladder of success. So I don't know. This kept playing out for me throughout this entire episode where I just feel like, I'm like, are you intentionally telling us these two stories of somebody going through something really hard and then somebody doing something that they really want to do and achieving greatness?
Yeah. And I feel like we've had plenty of moments of Carl doing what Eddie's doing right now, like Carl striving for something, you know, whether it's striving for his son to live his dreams vicariously. And we've certainly had a lot of moments where Eddie has showed his vulnerability by not having intelligence in some things. And especially, when Laura calls him out on it in a very mean way. So I think there's like a seesaw effect that's happening where it's like, oh, let's twist it around. Let's show Carl in a vulnerable, delicate light. And let's show Eddie having an enthusiastic moment that doesn't have to insult his intelligence. Harriet gets off the phone with Carl's high school classmate, Darnell. So I think it starts with Darnell making the phone call. Harriet answers, and we don't hear Darnell, but, by what Harriet is saying, it's implied that, hey, Harriet, where's Carl? Okay, high school reunion, plan, tell him to be there. And Harriet's just like, okay, sure, that's going to be fine. But we don't go into detail into where or why. Like, I think it was like this sort of vague conversation, like, oh yeah, Carl is gonna be so happy to hear from you. Okay, bye-bye. And then we go into like a conversation with Mama Winslow. So that was something that I noticed, was that there was a good moment in that scene where we didn't get detailed context as to what Harriet was talking about with Carl's old friend.
Yeah, I feel like we missed out on a big chunk of it when they were talking on the phone, because it did seem really clunky how it was just like, oh, we have this quick conversation and then the story expands.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, Carl, the Carl's friend who hasn't been seen in like 55 years. How are you? Okay, I'll tell him. All right, Mama Winslow, how's that cantaloupe doing? Like, that's how it felt. It was just like, wait, what? Like, no, give me some more detail on the conversation.
This is what they wanted, John. They wanted you to build anticipation of like, what is it that we missed out on this phone call that Harriet was so privy to?
I guess. And then eventually we find out that, Carl was in a singing group back in high school. That's his old friend Darnell. And there was a moment with, do you remember that Judy moment? Like, oh, Dad was in a singing group.
Yes, Judy's great little line.
Yep. And I almost wanted to tell Judy, of course, like, do you know who your dad is? Do you know how goofy he is? How adorably quirky he is? Of course he'd be in a singing group.
Yeah, your dad is somebody who's going to be in a singing group, and a great singing group at that. One that you would want to watch just because he's quirky. That was it for me in this scene, except for the transition music. It had a lot of guitar in it for this episode, and I've been used to hearing more saxophone, but that was the last thing that stood out for me here.
I had a moment with Mama Winslow when Mama Winslow explains that Carl and his 3 Darnell friends were in a singing group named the Darnells. I just found it funny that, we have a singing group named the Darnells, but there's one person in the group that's not named Darnell. It's Carl Winslow. So, like, the Darnells featuring Carl Winslow, Carl and the Darnells? No, it's just called the Darnells.
I like Carl and the Darnells, so if we can coin that, it's Carl and the Darnells, not just the Darnells. They left out a great man. They left out the lead singer.
So when Carl comes in and Eddie asks if he's done a video for his singing group, and Laura asks if she's burned a guitar on stage in his singing group. And Carl, I think, just like shoots all that down. And the kids, of course, react like, "Oh, Dad, you weren't in a singing group because you haven't smashed a guitar." And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, kids, it's not that kind of performance group. Like, you're talking about a guy who had adorable goofy dad barbershop quartet vibes. So no, not anything like Paula Abdul or Aerosmith.
I mean, I could imagine Carl with Kiss makeup on, smashing a guitar and lighting it on fire.
With a donut? Like holding a donut?
He would hold the donut in his mouth as he sets the guitar on fire and then plays it with the donut.
And then a mouse would just creep out of the donut.
Why a mouse?
Well, because remember the few episodes ago.
The mouse falling into the mixer.
I'm doing another callback.
I forgot about that.
I know it's awful. It's a health hazard, but damn it, Carl is going to do it for America.
He is doing it in the name of rock and roll. That's the kind of performance his kids want to see.
So then Harriet explains to Carl that one of the Darnells called to set up a 20th high school reunion. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, Harriet just answered Darnell, yeah, sure. Like, as if Carl already made up his mind, just kind of spoke for him. And I also found it strange, the idea of just cold calling an old classmate that you haven't seen in, 20 years or so. I guess you just know the number, you know where he lives, and just saying like, "Hey, high school reunion, see you there," and then just goodbye. I found it to be a very abrupt way of planning things.
I didn't think about that. They did have not seen each other for this long time. So to call out the blue, it does seem so abrupt.
Yeah. But hey, I guess that's how things were done back then. I mean, we're talking about an age before texting and emailing to give yourself time to, take in this information via a flyer or bullet points or something. So I don't know.
Very true. They didn't even have internet in their house at the time.
Oh, yeah. Mama Winslow's line about remembering going to her high school reunion. Remember that? Like, she was talking about like how she went to a high school reunion with some guy named Walter Simons, and Laura was like, "Oh, okay, sounds like you hit it off." And then Mama, like, she had a perfect line. Well, we had to. We were the only ones there.
I love Mama Winslow. She is the party, and that just clears it right there.
Gotta love those old people death jokes.
She's happy to be alive.
Yes. Who isn't happy to be alive, man? So many things to see. She got to see Barbara Bush and the Clintons and some of the second Bush before Rosetta Noir passed away. So, yeah, a morbid line that she just gave there, but a very hilarious line.
There's something about those lines when people say them. I laugh, but then I feel like guilty at the same time of laughing. I'm like, damn, that was a good joke. But I feel bad because you're talking about dying.
And then when Harry encourages Carl to go to the reunion to like see how much people have changed, Carl just like randomly snaps at her to just admit it and says he's fat. And then, it was at that moment where I was looking at him and I said, "Wow, Carl, you're not as obese as you think you are. You're looking pretty, I would say, average, and that's not bad."
He's not bad at all. I feel like I have the same body shape as Carl at this point. Like, we're probably around the same weight. And then how old is Carl supposed to be? I'm going to look into that. I've never actually looked into see how old he's supposed to be. But I mean, you're developmentally right where you're going to be at this age.
Well, Reginald is 71 right now. So 30 years ago, he was 41. 30 years ago was 1994. This is in 1990. So he must have been like in his mid to late 30s in this episode.
Okay. So he's right where he is. He's relatable to everybody who at least a lot of people who like me are watching it now. It's like, okay, I can see myself at this age, but not with kids that grown.
37 years old, I think he was. Oh my God. He's not too much older than us. That's weird to say. Oh my God. That's so weird to think that Carl Winslow was 37 and I'm 32. You're like, what, 36?
I'm 35.
Can you imagine being almost the same age as Carl Winslow?
Oh my God. We are Carl's almost age at this point.
So odd. Because remember, like, how when you were a kid at that time, like a 37-year-old looks like an 87-year-old.
Yeah, it looks like they are going to fall to pieces if they just drop to the ground.
When Harriet was suggesting to Carl that he go on a diet if he's concerned about his weight, and it's like, wow, you're his wife and you're suggesting that something is wrong with him and he should do something about it. And no, nothing is wrong with him.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with him. Did you feel like it didn't come from a loving place, or that was there a better way to say that without even talking about him going to a diet?
I know that Harriet means well. I think she could have said, if you're concerned about your weight, manage your food intake, go on a diet, but like leave the high school reunion part out of it. Because when you put the reunion part into it, it feeds into that image of, oh, well, you got to make sure that you're fit so that everybody who sees you thinks that you're good looking. No, like if you want to go on a diet, maintain your weight, do it for your own self, for your own well-being. Don't have anything associated with how other people are going to see you.
Okay, I can see that. Yes, that would have been amazing to hear.
We have the moment where Rachel's coming in fresh from her workout and Harriet tells her there's leftovers if she wants some. And Rachel says she's too pumped to eat and will just have water and some lemon, but to forget about the lemon because she's watching her weight. God, I found it to be a very unrealistic moment because I was like, woman, like usually after a workout, you get a pretty big appetite, much bigger than tolerating just lemon and water.
Same thing here. But I thought it was cute when she's like, I want it with the twist. And she's like, no, hold it. I'm watching my weight. And I just screamed. I screamed because it was the cutest little line.
Oh, my God. And then I think there was like an amusing laugh that Rachel did. Did you know that distinct laugh that she gave? Like,
yeah, it was like this weird, like happy but bird sounding laugh.
She's calling us for the worms.
She's got the worms for us. She's like, I'm here. What are you going to do with it?
And then when Rachel asks Harriet and Carl what they've done tonight, and Harriet says, we talked about how fat Carl is. And I know it's intended for funniness, but, again, Harriet, be supportive. Tell your man he's looking fine the way he is, going to the reunion. And if he doesn't want to go, that's fine. But there you go. Harriet representing Black woman honesty to a T. We talked about how fat he was.
She was being honest. I just feel like in that scenario, if somebody's going to use the word fat, Carl should be the only person. I don't feel like anybody should be calling him fat or saying, hey, we're talking about his fat. It's really his place to talk about his body, and everybody else was kind of talking about him like he wasn't even in the room. For scene 2, this things that just stuck out for me here. We've got the entire family having dinner. Everybody is present, even baby Richie. Everybody is in the scene, which is pretty nice to see. As far as the scene and what we have the entire table set up with dinner, a full dinner, more food than we've seen in this show ever. And some of it looks good, some of it doesn't look good. But the thing that I like is we get this ASMR moment of everybody serving and passing food to each other that has stuck out to me because now I'm in love with ASMR as an adult. So it's pretty interesting to just hear everything clanking, people serving themselves, serving the food, passing the dishes.
I didn't think about that. And that moment goes on for a while enough where it's noticeable, huh? They don't like jump right into dialogue.
They don't. It goes for about 5 to 10 seconds where it's noticeable, where it's like, oh, okay, we kind of have that like, I guess, Thanksgiving dinner sound of everybody getting food, passing food, and there's no direct dialogue to talk about the story. It's just passing food.
Okay. So yeah, we're at the kitchen table, sad and frumpy Carl. He's watching the family eat a bunch of delicious dinner that he cannot eat because of the diet. And, a couple of thoughts I had for this moment was I think the family should have been more sensitive to the fact that here's a guy who's trying to lose weight. And when you're just, shoving all this delicious lasagna in his face, that's not helpful.
None of it's helpful because everything actually was looking appetizing. And I felt bad for Carl. He looked like a sad dog just in the corner, like, I can't touch a thing.
Yeah. And also, I did want to say that Carl should have known that he didn't have to be at the dinner table. Like, what good is it when it sounds cruel, but like take a TV dinner tray and take your disgusting vegetable dinner. Sorry, Andrew, your disgusting vegetable dinner, and like take it to the living room. I know you're vegan, Andrew, but it really looked awful, that dinner. I don't even know what it was. I think it was like it looked like what was it, like overly soaked broccoli and asparagus or whatever.
That's exactly what it looked like. It was bland. It looked like it was just like boiled till it was going to fall to pieces. Nothing about that looked appetizing. And I love broccoli and asparagus, but I would not touch that.
That's the magic of prop food right there for you. So I think Carl should have just separated himself from all that delicious food, because that's just going to make you hungrier. That's going to make you frumpier. So both the family and Carl are at fault.
They're both at fault. But what I'm thinking, the only reason why I thought about it, because I thought about Carl leaving too. I don't know how this was for you. In my family and most Black family situations I've been in, if someone leaves dinner or does not come to dinner, the other members of the family take it offensively.
I know what you mean. I've gone through that where, if my siblings are either not coming to dinner or are late to dinner, when they eventually decide to eat, mom is like, okay, I guess nobody wants to eat together in this house like a family anymore. All right. Well, you go eat by yourself then. Nobody to talk to. Okay.
Yes, you get passive aggressive mom. Anytime I would be like, I'm just going to take dinner to my room because I'm playing a video game. Oh, well, I guess the family doesn't matter.
But in this show, family does matter.
Family always matters here. It always does.
Yeah, hence the name of it. Let's see. Another moment that I noticed, Harriet was having the nerve to tell Carl in response to his bad mood to grow up because it's only been 12 hours. Oh, yeah. I was like, woman, you pressured him into this. I mean, how about you try going 12 hours without delicious food if you're so used to, like when you're so used to having delicious, meaty, unhealthy foods?
Yes, when you're able to have that stuff. And even vegan people, I know if anybody y'all are vegan and you're listening, I want to know, do you relate to this where you still can have those moments where you snack and gorge on food when you don't need to? But going on a diet shouldn't be restrictive to the point where you're like, I regret doing this, or you feel like it's punishment or torture.
Right. I totally agree. Have that balance of this is healthy for me, and also this can be a very fun experience for me. Because I know there's a lot of fun, delicious foods out there that are also very good for your diet or very good for your health.
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, I don't know how easy, or honestly, thinking about where the Winslow's live, are they in a food desert? Maybe they can't get the things that you would really be able to get, but they could have given Carl something else. Rachel could have done like, hey, here's a little rice or something a little more filling than just these stalks of really, really bad looking asparagus and broccoli.
Right. A little fingernail size of rice with a little doppel of ketchup on it. Come on, just throw a bone to Carl.
Just a little something, just a little dab.
Eddie had to take a written test for a produce job. Remember that moment?
Yes. Eddie had to take a written test for the produce job, which surprised me. I'm like, what are you going to be writing down here? I would expect it to be more practical, but it's a test Eddie was actually excited about.
He was, and that is great for him. I have to say that I'm biased. I'm looking at this through post-pandemic lenses where employers, I mean, you tell an employer of a produce thing that, you want to work for them, and they'll just kind of hire you on the spot or talk to you for a little bit as the interview and then hire you on the spot. So to make it seem like, being a produce worker is the equivalent of taking your permit test at the DMV, it's just like, really? Like, do we need to put that much thought into sorting the cantaloupes and making sure the grapes are fresh when we squeeze them?
John, you never know. Maybe if you put the grapes in the right side of the tray, they're in the blind spot, and now you can't drive legally after you get your grapes.
That makes perfect sense. I see what you're saying. Sort the grapes in the right direction, or else the car accident will happen just like that.
Yeah, you got two people in cart. They're pushing their carts. They see the grapes in a spot where they shouldn't be. Boom, we got a collision, and it's all over. So Eddie needed that precision of how to place this produce, and the only way was with a practical test.
Okay, you should have been my DMV instructor and also my produce person at the grocery store, like a combined thing. That would have been your perfect role.
I would have loved that job, but you wouldn't want me as your instructor. I failed my driving test 3 times.
Same here.
Oh, okay. Then we're in the same boat.
Yeah. Which I guess is great in that we're not driving instructors. Don't trust us.
Trust your local DMV.
Yeah, exactly. The more you know. And then poor Carl, like, I mean, we mentioned the steamed broccoli and asparagus. Yes, it looks icky, but you know what I've said about asparagus before. Your pee smells funny. At least you have that to look forward to.
Johnny, you have said that before. Oh my gosh.
I know it's a joke that I keep on leaning on. I'm sorry. That's the only thing that I think of when I think asparagus. Like, oh yeah, my pee's going to smell really odd.
You know what? It is a kind of little fun little stamp on an asparagus experience. My favorite moment in the scene is Carl when they are passing the lasagna past Carl and he like grabs this dish out of his fit of hunger and just smells and inhales the tomato sauce.
He did that?
Yes. So Mama Winslow says to, I think, Eddie, can you please pass the lasagna? And she says, well, if I can get it past the jaws of life, which is Carl. Mm-hmm. And then as they're passing it, Carl is fighting with this dish of lasagna just to inhale the smell of the tomato sauce.
I don't quite remember that moment, but that does sound like Carl. That does sound like the monstrous, miserable, hungry figure that we know so well.
He was a little grumpy. He was hungry. He was angry. That's what was happening in that moment. And I just laughed because that is me when somebody has fried chicken around me, because I love some fried chicken. I'll be like, let me just smell it. Let me just smell it and just inhale the deliciousness for a minute.
Yeah, because that's the closest you'll get to eating it. The more you smell it, the more it'll seem like you're eating it.
Yeah, because eating it, I truly regret it. I truly do.
You ate fried chicken and then your stomach went just Ari?
Oh, yeah. My stomach said, what were you thinking? And punched me in the face. That's how bad it was.
All right.
But those were like the main points that stood out in the scene to me. The last little bit of it, just knowing how relatable it is to see a family dinner. And again, we've got this dynamic. Carl moping, still focused on his storyline. And Eddie, we just see him building more and more to his crescendo.
I guess we go to the Carl's midnight snack moment in scene 3.
We are going to Carl's midnight snack moment. I hysterically laughed at this moment because of me sharing my story with you. But to set up our scene here, Carl, Harriet, and Rachel are all going to be involved in this scene. Carl wakes up in the middle of the night or was already awake and waiting for everybody else to fall asleep and snuck down to the kitchen to go get food. He wanted to snack and eat and satiate himself. And we see him do a couple of like things that when I see this happen, I think we still don't need Steve Urkel because we have Carl's physical humor. That's awesome. But we've got Carl going to the refrigerator. It's got a padlock on it. He can't get into the fridge. And then there's a note that says, nice try, Carl. Go to bed. So before I go further, when I saw that scene, I started just laughing as soon as that he reads the note. What did you think when you first got the beginning happenings of the scene?
It could very well be that Carl wants to eat the way he wants to fucking eat and still potentially go to the reunion. And if that's the case, then, leave him alone. Let him do it.
Yeah. I feel like the family has lost their way here. And I do feel like you're saying they're just pushing Carl to lose weight without this actually being something that he wants to do.
And the notes are great. I mean, I think there was another note that said, "Dear Carl, please have a glass of water and go to bed."
I like that they're encouraging him to drink water. That's at least one healthy thing. But we continue in the scene, and then Carl goes to his candy stash, and that's missing. And there's another note up there. And I think that's the note that says, good try, Carl. Go to bed.
To just go back to that water note, I find it funny how they think that a man who is very hungry and determined to eat something solid in the middle of the night is going to just be content with drinking a glass of water. Like, no. Like, if I'm wanting something and you're just telling me to get a glass of water, no, I'm going to go for the bread.
I'm eating everything. I'm just going to eat everything. I don't feel like humans can't go without food. So Carl's not wrong for looking for food. He's trying to survive. But after he gets the notes, then he finds the baby food. And this is where this little scene got funny and relatable to me, because we get to see him trying to eat this jar of baby food, one with a massive spoon that he finds that can't fit in the jar, which is where we started with our physical humor, and then him ripping out one of these drawers to find silverware. And it gave me this whole moment of Carl being displayed as, how would I say it, somebody who's addicted and can't get their fix.
Yeah, he he was a family friendly version of a heroin addict. And I was wondering while I was watching this, like what your thoughts were. I know that you had eaten baby food when you were healing from a loose tooth.
I had braces, and the pain was just too much for me to handle.
Yeah. And I think he had strange spaghetti and meatball baby food, where you're just like, oh, yeah, good memories of my time having braces. I love strange spaghetti and meatball. Or are you just like, no, that's not my kind of baby food?
That was disgusting when I saw it, and I felt like I could taste the baby food all over again. It was gross. It was gross. I gagged.
And, you're talking about the utensil drawer moment. I mean, I love how Carl just clumsily opens it and Harriet is asking from upstairs if that's him. And then Carl tries to hide quietly into the laundry room as if he didn't just make the loudest noise ever in the middle of the night.
That was the funny moment to me where he tries to hide, carrying this drawer, clanking the entire way. And then Rachel and Harriet come down and just stand outside the door. I'm like, this is going to be a great moment once they finally reveal Carl eating this baby food.
Yeah, you can tell it's being set up. And then when my last point about this scene, Harriet comes down. Does she have Asian masseuse slippers on with her Winslow family?
Yes, she does. There's some weird slipper, and I was staring at them.
Yeah, I've had quite a few Asian massages in my day, so I was like, oh god, that's kind of bringing back some awkward memories there.
You know, it is. Harriet got her feet done, and she just took the slippers home. She's like, I'm taking these. You guys don't get to keep these. That's all I had. I like it because it was a quick short scene that led into our next scene with Carl and the exercise bike. Like this episode, again, I'm going to keep tying it into what's happened recently. This took me back to pandemic days, seeing somebody on a bike in their living room watching TV. I was like, oh, he's on like an early Peloton. It was not a Peloton. It was like this very old exercise cycling bike. And we see Carl in front of the TV, torturing himself, watching TV commercials about food, trying to exercise.
Yeah. And I was seeing his Police Academy sweatshirt and sweatpants and thought, this guy with the weight that he has on, it's not big weight, but nonetheless, he's still a fairly weighty guy. I would imagine he would be sweating a lot going the pace he's going at that exercise bike. And maybe it would help if he was wearing like a shirt and shorts instead. Maybe it adds into the insecurity of his weight. But that's the first thing that I saw when I saw Carl with his outfit, riding that bike as frantically as he did. I was like, oh God, dude, you're going to have a heat stroke pretty soon.
I think it was that belief, because I saw the same thing, but some people believe, or I don't know if it works, if you heat yourself up when you work out, you lose weight faster.
That's, I could see that because there is something to the sweat. Sweat, I believe, does contribute to burning calories.
I can see it. It's, again, I'm with you. I would have been like, I'm too hot. Like, if you ride an exercise bike in your house, unless you have great ventilation and air, it's just going to be hot.
When Laura and Judy come on down or come through the living room front door with their cupcakes, and Laura asks Judy if she wants the rest of hers, and Judy says, no, 3 is my limit. I don't know if you had any thoughts about how odd it was that 3 cupcakes is your limit. Maybe I'm biased because I like even numbers more than odd numbers. But I was just like, 3. That's just a really weird limit to have as cupcakes, as your cupcake limit. And I was also wondering if Judy was like currently on her 3rd, if she was on her 4th.
And I liked the line. This was the line where I laughed at Judy because she said 3 is her limit. And I don't know if I find it relatable. I think like my limit is like as many as I can stuff in my mouth. But I'm like, okay, 3 is your limit. It's the way she said it like some just old woman who's like, 3 is my limit. No more.
3 is my limit. And then give me my old lady napkin for my purse. Thank you.
The way Judy delivers each line she gets in this episode, you can tell she's really putting work into it. Because I'm just thinking about, as we've been going over the scenes, Judy has said something each time she's on screen that we notice. The cupcake line, then we have her in the first scene going up and talking. The second scene and the dinner. When they're at the dinner table, Judy's back is to us, but she specifically turns to the camera and asks somebody if they want the biscuits, I think. Or no, pass me the biscuits is what she says. So we have lines where she sticks out more and more in this episode than previous episodes.
All right. Well, bravo to the writers and producers for putting that out there, if in fact that was intended. I think there's another fashion comment for Laura. She had like a very ultra colorful, zigzaggy choker sweater. I just looked at that and I was like, that just seems more appropriate for Christmas time than in January, but maybe they taped this episode in December.
It could be, or maybe Laura just loves Christmas. She just like, I'm not giving up on Christmas. It's all year long.
Yeah, because I got straight A's and I get gifts and gifts for my straight A's.
Money. I did like in the scene that Rachel, she comes in as Carl's riding the bike, and the way she delivers the line of Carl getting on this ground to give her 50 after she gets him off the exercise bike, says he does a good job. And then she says, drop and give me 50. I can't even do it. The way she did it, she sounded like a boot camp instructor.
Drop it, give me 50.
That's good.
I was a boot camp instructor in my day.
Oh, really?
No. You really thought that was true?
I thought so. I thought.
Nah, I think the closest I'm going to get to that if Tony and I, my wife, were doing role play in the bedroom. But no, that's not something that's going to be in my real life scenario. Yeah, no, I noticed that as well, and I think I particularly loved Carl's grumpy facial expression when he was told to drop and give 50. He was just like, Reginald is just the greatest when it comes to just exaggerated animated frumpiness.
He really is. He made the scene funny, and it made me think, I'm like, maybe he's channeling that this brings him back to his police academy days. Going into scene 5, just the major points I had from the scene, because there weren't many that I snatched away, but it was color on color on color. Everybody had on bright colors except for Mama Winslow. She was in more of a gray muted tone, but everybody else had a lot of color in the scene.
Really? It's funny you say that. I was noticing Harriet's dark pink, dark green, and white top. Like, I was looking at that and I was like, man, it's like yogurt and Barney the dinosaur just got together and made love.
What?
I don't know. It just gave me like Barney, BJ, Baby Bop, and yogurt just coming together for some kind of fucked up orgy or something. It was a really interesting 90s-ish PBS vibe shirt.
Okay, I can see this Barney Bebop and wrestling in like yogurt.
Don't forget BJ. Appropriately enough, don't forget BJ.
And BJ.
Something I love in this scene is how genuinely happy the family was when Eddie announced that he got the produce job.
Yes, everybody was genuinely happy for Eddie. Comes in, he reveals that he got the produce job in this great red shirt that says, ask us about our tomatoes. And I love the joke that everyone's like, hey, how are your tomatoes? And Eddie just cluelessly, why does everybody keep asking me that?
I wrote down the exact same thing. It's just a great running thing. Like, what? Why were you asking me about my tomatoes? As your shirt clearly says, ask me about my tomatoes. Did you have question marks in your head when it came time for Carl's weight to be checked? So one, I was like, why is there a weight scale in the middle of the kitchen just randomly?
Yeah, why did they move it to the kitchen of all places? Just like, hey, let's move this in giant weighted scale into the kitchen.
So put it in the bathroom. I don't know where your weight scale is if you have one, but it's in the bathroom for me.
Mine is just in my bedroom, but it's right by the bathroom door.
Okay, that's fine too. Just not in the kitchen, because it's like, I mean, if you're looking to be shamed every time you eat in the kitchen, then that's the way to do it. Put a weight scale right there.
Carl doing the weigh-in was one thing that was interesting that I did like. I did like it, honestly, when it comes to this scene, we got more of our stories being compared next to each other. Eddie climbing his career up the ladder. Now he's in produce, and Carl getting to see the progress he's made losing weight. So it was kind of like a fun, happy scene where all this heavy, mucky stuff has happened before.
One moment I found funny, I think it was like Mama Winslow had a line about she was like she's like stepping up to see her weight on the scale, and I think she pridefully said that she had the same weight since 1947, which I can't find to be possible. Has there been anybody in the history of time that has had the same weight over like a 40-year time span?
I doubt it, but wow, to have the same weight for 40 years, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, like in order for that to happen, I mean, you have to eat like the exact same portion of food every day. Like you have to be like really wicked consistent with your calories, with your food intake every single day from 1947 up until 1990. That's like more than 40 years of boring, exact food consistency. Mama Winslow can cannot be that perfect.
There's no way. I mean, I put on weight in 4 minutes from walking from my bedroom to the scale. So I just don't see how you do it for 40 years.
Look, I mean, I guess we know why she was able to fit into that lingerie that she amusingly showed in that stakeout episode. But no, I mean, we also see like a fun freewheeling side of Mama Winslow through her traveling with her girlfriends, through her time that she's apparently spent with Barbara Bush and Queen Elizabeth. I find it hard to believe that she's very exact about her weight.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe too. She seems like such a free spirit, and that feels like such a trapped area.
Were you like me? Did you absolutely hate how Carl was dressed in this scene?
Oh, I did. The dad slides with this weird robe, and I'm just like, why is he dressed like this?
Oh God, he's got the robe with like a little bit of hairy bare chest showing underneath. The black dad slides, as you said, with the knee-high black socks. And I hate knee-high black socks that are exposed. If you want to have that like covered with your tuxedo pants and everything, perfect. But when you have that exposed the way Carl does, it's just icky. I don't like exposed black socks, period. Cover your black socks, please. I don't like it when it's exposed during sex. I don't like it when it's exposed here. I mean, I just looked at Carl and I was like, you look like you're about to pose nude for some kind of dad painting or like maybe like get ready for like a dad porn scene. It was just ew.
Carl Winslow, the private side.
God.
I love it because I wear black socks all the time where I'm like, ooh, but then I have cute socks too. But it was weird for an outfit to do a weigh-in in front of your family because I'm like, no dad just lounges like this during the day, or maybe this is just his lounge attire.
I guess. I mean, I could definitely see some dads being just so casual, like walking around in their underwear in front of their family like it's nobody's business. I mean, heck, there are some dads that like to poop with the door open. They like to poop with the back door open. Yep, I don't like that either. But hey, that could partially be because, you know, there are some kids that just like to walk in while their dad is pooping as if it's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to get a toothbrush. Hey, Dad, what's up? How you doing? And, you know, the dad's just like, wait, what? I'm doing something here.
I've always thought it to be weird. It's weird. Close the door when you poop.
And then we get to the reveal of how much Carl lost in terms of weight.
We do. We get to our reveal, Carl losing weight. Everybody excited about him losing weight. And then that just snowballs to another pitfall that we're about to have.
I think so, yeah. And he lost 11 pounds. That's what they say. I feel that that's very unrealistic in a short amount of time. I mean, it seems like only a day or two went by and already Carl lost this much weight. Okay, I guess we'll believe that. And then, it just, you know, as you said, I mean, we're just kind of going downward. We're further feeding into the fact that, like, yeah, you're skinnier, so now you're permitted to go to the reunion.
Yeah, you fit the weight requirement. Now we're going to get you to the reunion. And then we get another moment where it's like, oh, okay, I've got to call Darnell. And what does it turn into? Now Carl has to perform at this reunion.
Yeah, and this is where I don't blame Carl for reacting the way he did, because Harriet led him to believe that he was just going to lose the weight and then just go to the reunion as a quiet visitor. But it's like, wait a minute, woman, you want me to lose weight. I did that. And now all of a sudden I got to do something that I probably haven't done in many years in public, which is sing. Like, no, fuck that. Like, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. He wasn't ready for that at all. You hid it from him. All the details should have been given full up front because this is a whole different beast. And I don't blame Carl for this next scene and the reactions he has. So scene 6, my first thing that stuck out, Carl is making a delicious looking hot fudge sundae, or just a sundae, because I think the fudge was on the stove, but it wasn't hot yet. But he is eating his feelings at this point, and 100% relatable because I am a stress eater. So if I am having a moment like that where I'm like, well, you didn't tell me this bullshit, I am going to go eat 4 pounds of mozzarella sticks and you can't stop me at this point.
Yeah, a very good point. And to that point about the sundaes, did you notice that he had 2 paper bowls? Like, I was like, wait a minute, you're like, instead of just using one paper bowl for multiple helpings of a sundae, you want to eat a sundae in one bowl and then you just want to take out another bowl and have seconds. I was like, no, you could probably just refill in just one bowl. Carl is wasteful.
Carl is wasteful, but as a stress eater, I will tell you, you just want that second dish ready. You don't even want to have to build it again.
I guess that's logical. I mean, I guess, you know, if you already know you're going to have seconds, might as well just have both sundaes laid out so that you can just go from one to the other without getting the effort of like putting the scoop in the sundae thing again. And then you're just thinking more and more about how miserable you are.
Yes, you're double fisting a hot fudge sundae. That is what you do.
That sounds like an awful title for a porn video, by the way. Oh, boy. And you know what? That's a porn video featuring Carl based on how he was dressed in that last scene, tying together.
Tying it together. And honestly, I'm going to put double fisting hot fudge sundaes on my t-shirt next time I make one.
You're going to get so much backlash from the purists out there of Family Matters, but not that guy that we met at 90s Con who said that he watched all of the Judy Winslow porn videos.
That was such a weird moment. We are going to do an episode about 90s Con, and I hope y'all listen because I do want to talk about that, man. There was a lot I have to say that was built up, and now that I can express it, I'm going to express it.
I can't wait to hear it. And as to this episode that we're recapping, so like, yeah, it's unhealthy to eat your feelings. We know this. You and I have both done this, but Carl does have a good point when he goes on to his speech about society's obsession with being thin.
He does. He brought up terms that I haven't heard in a very long time, but heard as a kid, which left imprints on me about my own weight when he said he was called chubby and husky. Those terms, people thought they were friendly, but they really do stick with you from childhood.
Absolutely. And then, of course, like, you know, as Carl mentioned, when you grow up and either you yourself as the person with the weight or someone commenting on your weight, you know, maybe trying to make nice and say like, oh, you're big boned.
You're big boned. Or now this new one I've heard is big backed. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what in the world? At this point, just call me fat. What is big backed?
You just have a 500-pound back. You have a very strong, husky back that can store everything you need. You can store multiple sundaes. You can store trash cans. Anything you need to store. Forget about like renting storage space somewhere. Put it all in your back.
That actually sounds far more friendly than somebody just shouting at me, you're big backed. And I'm like, damn, just call me fat. I am fat. We know that. Just call me that.
And I have to say, like, there's a particular line in Carl's speech that stood out to me. I think he was saying like, oh, all these people who are 90 pounds dancing, having a good time, where do they get the strength? Good points. Because the great thing we can say about us people who have a healthy amount of weight is that there are carbs that come with that weight that give us strength. Sure, okay, society, the thinner you are, the more beautiful you are, but a little bit weightier and energetic, or thin and beautiful, but you always have no energy.
Exactly. I want to be able to cut up a rug. That's what I want. And you can do that when you got a little chunk on you.
So anytime you say cut up a rug, I think you're mentioning farting, but like, but apparently not. Like, what? So is it like having a good time, partying, being drunk, or is it just like, oh yeah, let's fart away our lives and just be merrily happy? I don't know.
I'm sorry. I just imagine a group of people just farting.
Because, like, I don't know. Certain words just stick out to me. It's like, oh, cut up a rug, cut the cheese, like, you know, that kind of thing we used to say when we were kids. But no, what does it mean?
I can see that. Cut up a rug means go dancing. We're gonna go dance.
Okay. Because when you had mentioned, like, you know, going to cut up a rug for a 90s Con, like our weekend, and we were going to go to the convention first, and then afterwards we were going to go see a drag show, I was like, oh, okay. I guess Andrew is just very much into passing gas after the convention for the rest of the night.
I love that you equated our night out to just being around and farting.
Look, I mean, there's so much tension when you are just meeting celebrities at a convention. You just need to go to a nightclub where there's a drag show and just let your gas loose.
I'm sorry, I'm crying.
I know, same here. When Carl was talking about how he was called chubby and husky as a kid, and now he's called big bone, and then Harriet then was asking a good question to Carl. Oh, well, yeah, we eventually get to the moment where it's implied that Carl is okay with the way he looks. And Harriet said, well, you know, if you're happy, then why do you care about what the people at the reunion are going to think? And this is when I was like, Harriet, why didn't you give this energy earlier, man?
I feel like Harriet had to see Carl in his down moment to finally understand, like, oh crap, this is really affecting him. But I was with you. I was like, why didn't you say this from the beginning, Harriet? Because I know you're amazing and you know you felt this way before Carl said anything.
Did you notice how quickly Carl changed his mind? Like we had the sappy emotional background music, Carl telling his sob story. Like after that, like it just seemed like at the snap of a finger, like, okay, honey, thanks for the advice. I'm good. Like I felt like this was a very quick moving scene rather than a slow, gradual transition from Carl feeling shitty about himself to then feeling good enough to go to the reunion as is.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. I thought we were going to get a lead out to another scene, then Carl deciding, but it just happened like that.
And then he decides that he won't eat his sundae so that he could fit into his reunion suit. So I felt like we were contradicting ourselves. I was like, wait, what? So are we putting out the message that weight does matter, weight doesn't matter? I mean, I know, yeah, you know, there was that comment that Carl made about wanting to fit into his reunion suit was kind of played for laughs, but I would have liked more consistency in messaging.
Yeah, I actually feel like he should have ate the sundae, not like shamed himself for eating it to fit into this outfit when we're supposed to not care about what happens as far as looks. So it was a very odd like placement of that joke in there.
Did you find it odd that there was like no tablecloth on the kitchen table?
Yes, it was naked.
It just looked like, you know, oh, we're just going to come into this house that doesn't belong to us and just sit on this table because, you know, we're on stage and this doesn't belong to us. So let's just kind of pretend like this is a natural kitchen scene.
Yeah. It was very that of, oh, we're going to pretend like this is what every family does at this moment of the day. And this is just a normal thing. And the kitchen table was dressed in casual at that point. It was no longer business.
What I will say, even though that Harriet could have been better with Carl earlier about the whole reunion weight association, they know how to be physically affectionate. They're getting better at it. And I just love seeing their love. You know, there was a moment at the end of that scene where Carl was like, oh, you're the only sugar I need. And Harriet makes a, ooh, like I think she was making like an ooh sound.
Yes. They're finally building chemistry where they're like oohs and ahs and they know how to touch each other and like look romantic all at the same time. It was a nice little warm scene, but I do feel like the message was pretty jumbled in this one.
And now we go to our high school reunion.
We get to the reunion, which the reunion, I have to say, it looked like every reunion scene I've ever seen in every movie that I love. And it seemed like a nice little fun place when everybody comes in. Everybody starts dancing, introducing to each other. Carl meets his old teacher, who I think is one of our guest stars.
Yeah. I believe this is an old lady that is no longer with us. This should be Miss Gilbert, Ellen Albertini Dow as Miss Gilbert. I think I think her interaction with Carl was something like he like forgot to return a library book or something.
Yeah. No, he never turned in his English essay.
Oh, okay. And did she mention that there was like a consequence for not doing that?
Mm-hmm, she did. And Carl made a great joke that he's like, I've only been here for 2 minutes and I already have homework.
And then we go to his interaction with Russell Wilcox. And I just love how he really remembers some, because, you know, they have that, you know, like, and I think Carl was like confused for a moment as to who this was. And then once he recognized Russell, I don't know. I felt like it would have been like, oh, yeah, like we were best friends in math class, or, oh, yeah, like we were best friends at lunch. We always, but it was like, no, just some guy who sat behind me in homeroom.
Yeah, which was so weird. It was like, so you just sat behind Carl Winslow this whole time, never said anything to the homeroom, so you talked to him at the reunion?
I guess. And did you love the sort of bitter relationship that Carl and Harriet were observing between Russell and Irene?
It was tasty. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at the reunion if that was a real moment.
I found it to be like very brilliant and funny commentary on like what can happen when you marry your high school sweetheart. Because when you have this perception that like, oh, this person I meet in high school is going to be the person that I am with for the rest of my life, there is a supreme lack of growth that can happen. And, you know, you most likely will end up hating each other because just it's stilted growth. You just haven't given, like, both parties just not having given each other the opportunity to explore the world, explore a variety of experiences and people. So, yeah, I mean, I think that can lead to a lot of resentment and a lot of behavior that could make it seem like you're both still in high school, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense because you've been with her this whole entire time. You have not experienced Barney, BJ, and Baby Bob covered in yogurt. So you have not lived. You need to go experience that freedom.
I need to have some yogurt right now. Thank you, man. That was a great image.
But I did like their whole fight scene. And the thing I do have to say, I loved everybody's fashion in the scene. It seemed like it was like older crowd, auntie, uncle age, but everybody wanted to look cute, including the couple fighting.
You know what? I didn't have too much to say about the fashion, but what I will say, Harriet in particular, wasn't she wearing like some kind of like interesting dark gray ensemble?
Yeah, it was like a dark gray, kind of dressy-ish look.
And then we get to the first Darnell, coming up to Carl, like shake hugging him, like, oh my God. And I could literally see Reginald jump up and down as that first Darnell is shaking him. And, that was to give the illusion that Darnell 1 was the one that was shaking. But no, I could see Reginald just doing the jumping on his own.
I noticed it too when I rewatched it, because when I first watched it, I was like, wow, he's shaking the crap out of Carl. And then I was like, oh, Carl's jumping. He wasn't actually shaking him.
And then we eventually see Darnell 1's wife, Janet, who I guess we find out that he also was put on an unnecessary high school reunion diet. And for one night out of the year, not worth it. But hey, I think that reveal is shown because Carl needs to know, oh, you're not the only one going through this trouble. Your friends are going through that trouble too, and that's a bonding experience.
Yeah, it's a bonding experience, but then it's also showing that there's just this rampant obsession with weight that is so unnecessary.
Very unhealthy. And then Darnell 2 and Darnell 3 come in, and I was just sitting back and smiling and enjoying, like, all three Darnells and Carl just hugging, greeting each other very smiley and warmly. I mean, you got the impression that, like, oh, these are old friends that are so happy to see each other again.
Yeah, if they weren't really friends in real life, I would truly believe that they were friends just by the way they greeted each other, and it just looks so warm and happy.
And then Carl is now in a good mood around the Darnells. He's getting ready to rehearse a song, and perfect example. I mean, in his head, he was thinking like, shit, I got to sing in public for the first time ever. That's going to be frightening. I'm going to be a failure. But as you can see, like, the enthusiasm that he has for seeing the Darnells for the first time in a long time, that just feeds into this like sort of positive, infectious energy. Like, yeah, let's go, let's sing. Like, I'm so happy to see you, and I think this public performance is not going to be so bad. I think this will be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love the enthusiasm where we get that moment of, we got this, let's do this. We're all fat together. I just love that, because they just are like, we were so self-conscious about our weight, but we're all here together and let's do this. Like the way I would imagine they were friends in school, to be friends for so long, everybody named Darnell on top of that. So I liked that energy that we got, and it kind of made me feel better about this episode to see that image.
The Darnells, we know this, they are noticeably bigger in weight than Carl. And I understand that the show had good intentions in expressing that Carl, by comparison, is doing just fine. And it definitely helps that Carl is excited to see the guys again. But I don't know, I felt like a small part of it was also like, oh, look at the weight on these Darnells. I felt like there was still like a stigma of like, well, Carl, you think you're doing bad. Look at them.
I did get that feeling of, oh, well, you're fat, but you're not that fat. Right. Or I kind of felt like they displayed Carl as the good fat and the Darnells as the unhealthy fat, where I'm like, okay, we didn't need this comparison.
And now I think this is actually the final scene.
This is our final scene. We fade away and then fade back in, which I think that was supposed to be a commercial break if you're watching it the way I'm watching it on Hulu. But we get Carl and the Darnells singing Do You Love Me? And it's so good. It's a good performance. This was probably like the first time in the entire series, if I'm right, where the final scene doesn't take place at home. And we only have, as far from the main cast, Carl and Harriet in the scene.
I noticed that. And also, I noticed how great of a talk singer Reginald is. Like, those people that could like talk sing very well. Mm-hmm. He just has a nice musical bravado to his voice that when he talks sings, it's like, oh, that's fun. That's cool. That's charming. You keep going, my guy.
Yeah, I like it. He was very smooth with it. And I agree that talk sing voice he has, it's like relaxing.
you broke my heart. Na, 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 na. Like he was doing that. Na, 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 na. But when he broke into song, I was wondering if that was him or somebody else. Like, what do you think? Do you think that was generally his singing voice?
I think it was his singing voice. I think it was just because I know he's done a lot of acting, and I just believe everybody who does a lot of acting can sing. It's probably wrong, but I just believe it was him, his singing.
And if it was his voice, do you think he lip synced? I felt like maybe there was a lip syncing instead of a live performance.
Oh yeah, he would have won RuPaul's Drag Race with that lip sync. It was a good one.
And then I loved the shots of Harriet looking happy, looking thrilled that her husband is up there having a good time, not self-conscious about his weight, just being there enjoying himself.
Yeah, it was a great warm moment, and it was a great way to end the episode with her just happy, him happy, and it was good. It made me feel like I got a nice little hug at the end of the episode.
But like when the camera like kind of panned in on Harriet for a little bit, looking at her husband all enjoyed, I felt like I got a little bit of bedroom eyes. Like she was looking like, damn, look at my husband looking fine, enjoying himself with his old Darnell friends.
Yeah. Oh, she said you're getting some tonight. Yeah.
And Reginald, his enthusiasm, like when he was like, you know, doing the mic cord swinging and he was bringing back that mashed potato dance from a few episodes ago. I was like, you know, it's one thing that you could sing well, but when you physically like get into it, like I'm all with it.
Yes, I put that in my notes. He literally did every dance he did in that cold opening during his performance.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He is what we need from this show before Urkel completely takes over.
Yes. And again, this episode for me, it proves that Urkel at least was not needed for the sake of the physical comedy, because Carl nailed it in this episode. But really, I do see what they brought him in.
And I'm seeing that we're liking him more and more. I cannot remember the last time where Carl was truly unlikable. I feel like that might have been like prior to episode 9, where I felt like Carl was last unlikable. So he's having a nice streak so far. I'm really, really loving it.
So as far as the rating, I'm going to break it down just so you guys can understand it. Each episode has an appetizer, an entree, which is the main course, a dessert, or it could be junk food, which means there's no nutritional value. The appetizer for this episode, essentially for me, is Eddie's side story of his promotion at work. We got a little taste of something. It was delicious. It prepared us for the meal that we're about to have as a part of our main course. The main course for this was Carl's story. Him going through the struggle and being vulnerable of his weight, but ultimately overcoming this in the end. Not on his own completely, but with encouragement, and also the antagonism of his family, which I feel like is the main course here. We have a full thing to digest. And then the dessert for me was Carl's performance. His performance was amazing. It really made me feel good watching it. The only thing that I would say was like junk food. There was no nutritional value to it at all. Was the cold opening. I didn't need it. I could have gone through this episode without the cold opening and been perfectly fine with where we ended up at.
I think that's a great rating. The appetizer for me would probably, you know, you say that the cold opening you didn't need and that it was junk food. I could argue that the cold opening could be the appetizer because it features Urkel, a bit of slapstick comedy, a bit of costume comedy via what he was wearing. So it's comedy that will set us up for what's to come, for what the audience loves. So that would be my appetizer. The main course, God, I mean, I would say the main course is my feeling of this family equating going to a high school reunion with this obsession that society has with weight. And that would not necessarily be a main course that I would enjoy. I would say that's a main course in the sense of like, okay, this meal is making me full and it might be making me slightly nauseous because I ate too much. So I would say, yeah, it was a very filling and mediocre main course. That idea of in order to be good for your high school reunion, you have to be at a weight where people will accept you and like you. So that would be my main course. My dessert would be the fact that Carl realized that the weight didn't matter, that he could just go to the reunion, reunite with his friends, and enjoy himself. The singing, of course, that was the icing on top of the dried banana muffin, if we want to just put a metaphor on there that doesn't make sense. As far as junk food, something I could have done without, I'm going to say Eddie's produce thing. And the reason I say that is because I feel like that positive, uplifting moment in Eddie's life, I think it was misplaced. I feel like this could have been placed in an episode with more of a center on Eddie. I don't think the writers realized how big of a deal it was for Eddie to have this positive, uplifting moment in his life. Because think about it, like what we've got from Eddie so far is that like, oh, he's a dumb teenager. He only thinks about girls and maybe the occasional sports or whatever, hanging out with Rodney, video games. He just has a very low IQ. He's not doing too well in school. He happened to get somebody else's straight A's instead of his own. Like it's just been constant put downs of Eddie. And even though they're for the sake of comedy, they are put downs. So when we have an episode finally, when we say, wow, Eddie is like so excited about this job. And I think if I remember correctly, he actually got it. Yeah, he actually got the job. Yeah. To have that in an episode where the big focus is like Carl's feeling insecure about his weight, but then he gets over that insecurity, goes to the high school reunion, has a good time. I don't know. I just feel like it's like a story that was just kind of put under the rug that deserved more A story treatment rather than like B story treatment. So that's my junk food. Not, the story was bad, but it should have been more of a focus in another episode.
I didn't think about it that way. Now I kind of change what I was thinking about Eddie's story.
No.
I'm going to be quite honest with you because I didn't think about it of they could have made this into a whole separate episode for Eddie, fleshed it out a little bit more, and it could have been more impactful.
Yeah, because I thought, again, seeing what we've seen so far with Eddie, I feel like it's a great sign of growth. And to make it just like, oh, this little B story, like, no, make like some stupid shit with Urkel a beach story. Like this thing with Eddie, no, I think it should have been a lead story for another episode. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. Don't change your thing. I mean, I think it's nice that we have different points of view on this. That's what makes this interesting.
It is. I'm still going to keep it as my appetizer, but I just thought about this in a different light because I didn't think about it in such an expansive term of like, damn, that could have been good. It still, for me, held the value in the episode that kept me in because I was like, it's kind of cool. And I'm probably thinking way too much into it, but to see these stories intertwined together where it's like, okay, Eddie's on the upward, Carl's kind of going down, and we're going to see how these characters bypass each other through this episode where we see Carl at his lowest moment and Eddie at his highest moment, all in the same scene. It allows us to have that juxtaposition of like, wow, me watching this as somebody in my 30s now, I know how it feels to be Carl and be like, damn, I tried to do this and I tried to do that and it didn't work out. I keep putting on weight and people refer to it all the time, but I just try to smile and work my way through it, even though it really hurts me in the end. Meanwhile, I've got somebody who's very close to me, essentially my son, who's like, hey, life is going great right now. I am on the upswing. I don't know what stress is. I don't know what it feels like right now. I just know that I did the work and I got to where I wanted to be, which is a great moment to have. But it's just so nice to see the two stories next to each other. But now I want like a secondary episode. Like, could we have gotten an episode where this episode was redone again, but we get to see it from Eddie's point of view and everything he's going through to get to his goal?
I think that would have been a great other episode. And if not that, then give the A story 15 minutes and then give the B story 15 minutes. Not like, oh, we're going to give like 20 minutes to Carl and then like a little blip about Eddie, having the produce job. Because I think after that Ask Me About My Tomatoes moment, like that story's done. Like that was just kind of thrown away. And now the main focus for the rest of the show is Carl's high school reunion weight shit. So a very thought-provoking episode indeed. And great job with the leadership on this one, Andrew.
Thank you. This was a fun little adventure.
For you listening, if you want to chime in, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns about the episode, we would love to hear it. thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com. And we are at Family Matters Rewatch Pod on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. And how can people follow you?
They can follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at AJ Vandertunt. Yeah, I signed up for a Pinterest. I feel very cute. I've been like saving wedding stuff, even though I don't plan on getting married.
Okay, so that's cool. Save wedding stuff for the fun of it if you'd like. But also, given the fact that we frequently talk about the costume choices in Family Matters, and also given the fact that Pinterest is like a costume heavy thing, I feel like we should like associate that together. Don't you think? Like maybe find some way to give our Family Matters costume thoughts on Pinterest? I don't know. I'm just kind of brainstorming right now.
I think that would be a phenomenal idea. I think that would be very good. We could start a Pinterest. Oh my God. I am going to start looking for vintage ugly sweaters, ugly rhombuses, colors, and everything. And if I find them, I'm posting them to Pinterest and you guys can see them. And who knows, maybe I might give one of them away.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's like try to find like Family Matters costume choices that stood out to us and incorporate it into Pinterest. That would be something special.
I would freaking love that. I would love that a lot.
So how about you take us out in our usual fashion?
All right, y'all. This was fun. And I think I've got a good taste in my mouth. So let this deliciousness ring.